Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Bossman Cooking. We have a special episode here. We're going to be talking with George Brown of Alexis George Wines. George, thank you for joining us. And we're going to talk about holiday wine pairings for Thanksgiving. So, Thanksgiving's coming up soon, and, everybody's going to be in the house or in their own houses because nobody is going to
Nobody.
groups. So you might want to
Nobody.
you might want to have, some special wine for this, probably once in a lifetime occasion of a quarantine Thanksgiving. So George, with turkey and dressing and maybe a roast beef or duck or whatever folks are cooking for their Thanksgiving meal, what can you tell us about different types of wines? Matter of fact, before you get into that, can you just tell us a little bit about Alexis George Wines?
Absolutely. So thanks for having me, Kevin. Definitely appreciate it. Always love jumping on to talk about wine and wine pairings and just wine in general. Alexis George Wines is our baby. Alexis is my daughter's middle name. George is my son's middle name. And so we named the winery after them. As you can see, we've got some bottles in the backgrounds of some of the brands that we do. Our winery's in California, so we produce out of Lodi, California. And so, in the coming year, you'll see our brands and several retailers around the country as we start our national launch, and then in a couple of hotels as well. I'm starting in February and some country clubs throughout the country as well, throughout the United States, starting in May. So we've been in production since 2016,
Okay.
and it really has grown incrementally over those last 3 years. But this year has been really phenomenal as relates to the year where we're really just going to take off. And so we're excited about all the things that are come in 2021. Put 2020 behind us.
I understand.
And
let's coming to an end.
Yes, it is. If I was able to turn the lights on and rush 2020 out the party, I'd do so. I'm ready to see it go. Right.
I hear you, bro. I hear you.
But Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving is a tough but easy pairing, right? Because as you mentioned, there are so many different flavors for Thanksgiving, right? And it's tough to pair one varietal type for Thanksgiving because of the litany of flavors. Whether it's the turkey, whether it's if you're putting ham in your greens, and which you salted with there, or if it's the mac and cheese, if it's the beef that you're going to have, or the ham in general, whatever it may be, is a litany of flavors. And so one of the things I always recommend, one of the varietals I recommend is champagne.
Okay.
Champagne and sparkling wine is so versatile in how it pairs with all foods, whether that's Thanksgiving or just meals in general. The great part about champagne is it's a great palate cleanser. So you may have one type of food that sets the food off in one particular way because of the herbs or because of the seasoning. The little champagne cleanses that palate, right, and prepares you for the next type of food item.
Potatoes.
Sweet potatoes, right? Typically champagne, is not, very oaky as you'll get in some wines. It's not high in tannin, so it doesn't temper or change the way your mouth feels and things of that particular nature. But those bubbles just accentuate the food that you're eating, and again, it cleanses the palate. And then what better way for a holiday, right, to celebrate than other than champagne? It's typically the ultimate wine, if you will, sparkling wine, for any celebration. And so that's the number one go-to, I would say, as far as my recommendation for Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Now, if you're not into champagne per se, then there's the Sauvignon Blancs of the world that are always a good pairing. What I would say, a lot of people say Chardonnay. Chardonnay, yes, is the right there tied with Cabernet, is the typically the most consumed wine varietal.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing about careful about Chardonnay and Thanksgiving is a lot of times you'll have Chardonnay that's been aged in oak. That oak can interfere with the flavors of Thanksgiving dishes. A lot of times it can be really buttery. If it's, for lack of better words, depending on how much malolactic fermentation is induced into the.
Now the average person has no clue what you just said.
Right. Well, let's just put it this way. Let's put it this way. Let's put it this way. The amount, it can be really buttery, right?
Okay.
So you don't want overly oaky. You don't want overly buttery. And a Chardonnay a lot of times can present that dilemma when it comes to pairings with the amount of flavors that you'll have with Thanksgiving. So again, I'd say a Sauvignon Blanc is always a good choice. A Gewürztraminer or Riesling. Rieslings, some people think really sweet, which you can get a really sweet Riesling. But you can also get, some German Rieslings that are not sweet at all, and everything in the middle. So which makes that Riesling really a good option. Before I get into the reds, that's the thing you also need to consider, who's over, right? Because everybody has different tastes. And so you want to be somewhere in the middle where everyone can enjoy the wines that you are bringing to the Thanksgiving celebration. Champagne, Sauvignon Blanc, a Riesling, depending on which end of the scale you like to be in, and a Gewürztraminer are the top three, I would say, from a white wine perspective.
Okay.
Now, the other thing I would say is this, when we talked about Rieslings in the full scale, and it's probably most importantly, I should have said this first. The most important thing is to drink what you like. So I can bring a Pinot Noir to a party, right? But if you don't care for red wines, then it doesn't matter, right? We want to make sure, as much as you want to pair things appropriately and correctly, the most important thing is to drink what you like. Somebody can bring a very expensive bottle of wine in a specific varietal, and somebody that doesn't have that palate or doesn't care for that particular type of wine is just not going to enjoy it.
Right.
Wine is like Thanksgiving. It's made to be enjoyed by everyone that's there. And so try to bring something that really is right in the middle that you think everyone will enjoy, and not just something for yourself to enjoy specifically. Okay. Now, from a red wine perspective, our favorite varietal is Pinot Noir. Besides the fact we produce a very good Alexis George Russian River Pinot Noir that we're actually shipping out of the winery, and we'll be in stores and stuff near you very soon.
Slide in that shameless plug.
Yeah, I'm just
you're on the show, plug it.
I'm just saying, just for the purposes of the fact that it really, really pairs well with Thanksgiving. But Pinot Noir really does. It's a great food wine. And so that's one of the wines that I would say from a red wine perspective will probably be something to really consider highly if you are looking to bring a red wine to your Thanksgiving meal. Typically medium bodied, not a lot of tannin. Tannin really affects the mouthfeel and gives you that choppy, when people go like that, when they're drinking wine, it's typically because of the tannin. It dulls the senses to a very large degree in the mouth. And that comes from the grape skins themselves. And that's typically found in a Cabernet. Cabernets are not typically ones that you want to consume with Thanksgiving meals because of the tannin, because of the oak I talked about before, etc. Okay, so tannin, Syrahs are always also another good way to go for a Thanksgiving meal. Um, and then Zinfandels. Zinfandels offer not overly spiced, but again, a nice full-bodied red wine, typically not very oaky, typically not very tannic, etc. And those are our top three, I would say, again, from a red wine perspective, that should be considered for Thanksgiving. Considering all the flavors that will be on the Thanksgiving table, is the right way to think about what you're going to bring to Thanksgiving from a wine perspective, because you have to be able to cover all of those.
Now, where do Moscatos and things like that fall?
Well, Moscatos typically fall on the sweeter range. If you know that the people that are going to be at your Thanksgiving celebration like a sweeter wine, Moscato is the way to go. But again, I can go back to a Riesling, right? You're going to try Moscato, try a sweeter Riesling. And possibly something that's not overly sweet in the Riesling range, because then, again, you'll have the opportunity for more people to enjoy it. And so while I don't shun Moscatos in any way, I typically recommend a Riesling because then you can decide how sweet in that range of Riesling you want to go. And as I said, when you have a collective group of people around the table, you typically can have more people inclined to enjoy that Riesling that might not drink really sweet wines, as opposed to some that do. And that person that drinks a sweeter wine can still get some of those sugars that they want in that Riesling.
Okay. Now, you talked about the Rieslings and the reds, the whites. We've touched on Moscato. We've touched on Champagne. It almost sounds like BYOW, bring your own wine.
Well,
bring one that you like and then one for everybody else.
Well, when I go to a party, let's just put it this way. I'm bringing a wine to the party.
Okay.
If I happen to drink my own wine, then oops, it just happened to be there. Okay. Now, you want to try to bring something that everyone enjoys. You want to try to make the best selection you possibly can for everyone that's there, right? Because again, as I said, wine is communal.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, you also want to ensure that you're having a good time, right? And so, make sure you get what you like.
Right.
It's great for everyone to be there to celebrate. You want to make everyone happy, but you also want to make sure you're enjoying yourself as well. And so again, it goes back to your point earlier, a few minutes ago, Kevin, when you had a conversation about Moscato and I talked about Riesling. Riesling is one of those examples where I can put, if I'm a Moscato drinker, perhaps I'm going to bring a Riesling that's sort of sweet, but not overly sweet, because I'm going to have consideration for the rest of the people, and maybe they can all enjoy the wine that I'm bringing. But the other thing is, when a lot of different people bring wines in different varietals, here's an opportunity for us all to sample, right, and expand our horizons when it comes to wine. So I will say to people, if you're like a Moscato, don't shun or be afraid to try the Pinot Noir that I talked about. Don't be afraid to try the Zinfandel I talked about. If you're a Pinot Noir drinker, what's wrong with trying the Riesling and perhaps finding a Riesling that you may enjoy for other occasions. Rieslings are great sitting on the patio in the summertime when it's scorching hot, kind of sipping wines. And again, those Rieslings, they range the full gambit. And so why not try to sample at those environments where there's a multitude of wines and see if you can pick up some other varietals that you may enjoy.
Now, where would something like a Sangria or something like that fall?
Now, I'll tell you, Sangria is amazing, right? Because that's you can kind of put, there's all kinds of recipes for it.
Right.
You can use all types of wine. There's white sangrias, there's light red, there's fuller body reds, depending on what alcohols you may put in it, whether it's brandy or other things. You can slap all types of fruit in it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Thing to be mindful of when it comes to sangrias is the fruit, right? You begin to put a certain amount of citrus fruit in there, that obviously begins to give it a different makeup, and you begin to bring things much more on the citrusy side. But I will say, as throughout the day, when the food's being finished, because we start cooking the day before, right?
Right.
As the food's being finished that morning and early afternoon, sangria is amazing to sip on throughout the course of the day.
Okay.
Because again, it's very refreshing. That fruit, that citric fruit that's in there adds that level of just refreshingness. It's amazing. And again, it's a great way to use some of the just a bevy of different wines that you may want to bring. So when you're again, this year for Thanksgiving, as we hunker down with our close family, or the family, immediate family that we know where they've been for the last 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
That may be coming over, but we know that they are right up the street, or we know what their habits are. When they come in, how about a nice glass of sangria? I think sangria is a really, really amazing and a great wine to just sip on throughout the course of the day.
Okay, great. Now I have one last question. In terms of the wines, what about for cooking?
Yeah. Well, can you be a little bit more specific when you say that? Meaning, what type of wine should you use to cook, or?
Yes.
Well, so here's first thing I'll tell you.
Difference whether you're using, a Riesling versus. I understand, a red versus a white. Depending upon the dish. But is there a particular flavor, or a Chardonnay or Riesling or something like that for?
Right. Well, so here's something to be mindful of when it comes to that. So sugar content in wine is important, right? So Rieslings have more sugar. Certain wines have more acidity. Alcohol levels different in different types of wine, right? In the cooking process, though, the alcohol is burned off at a certain point, right? And so it really comes down to the food, how it blends with the food. So what type of wine is important in regard to the type of food you're trying to make. Sometimes it's the marinade that you're trying to put with it. It really, if it's a red sauce or marinara sauce, something along those lines, and you want to cook with a red wine, and that could vary depending on what the dish may be. Often when I cook a pasta dish, if it's a cream dish, I may throw a little Chardonnay in there or something like that, just to accentuate the creaminess if it's a cream dish, just to add that component to it. And so it really just depends on the dish you're making. One thing I would say is what you don't need to really do is pour your more expensive or higher, not expensive, but you don't have to put wine that you spend a good amount of money on and you're cooking, right?
That $100 bottle, you don't have to use that.
Even that $20 bottle, you don't have to do that, right? Again, the alcohol is burned off. You don't want to put wine. You don't want to cook with wine that doesn't have necessarily a good flavor, or it's but again. It really just depends on the dish that you are trying to make and how it accents the flavors that you're trying to bring out in the dish you're making.
Okay. Now, finally, you know, you've talked about the gambit of wines that Alexis George does.
Mm-hmm.
How do folks go about getting Alexis George wine?
Well, so AlexisGeorgeWines.com was where I will ask everybody to go to purchase, yes, but as importantly, to understand what we're about. So for every bottle of wine we sell, every case of wine that we sell, we're very intentional about donating a portion of those proceeds to scholarships for youth in underserved communities.
Okay.
You know, I was very fortunate to go to a great middle school, a great high school,
And an amazing college.
and that's exactly right. But I will tell you, the college is so much more than the classroom. It's so much more than the books. You learn about life, and you grow as much outside the classroom with the people that you become lifelong friends with, that come from other places, that you share life experiences with, and you grow as a person. You see the opportunities, and you some of the things you couldn't even imagine that you would want to do or believe you can do on a winery. Be a you establish a certain level of audacity that you didn't necessarily have coming out of high school, a certain level of confidence. And so for us, the more people we can create that experience for, taking away the obstacles of whether it's tuition, whether it's the sticker shock of books from the bookstore, that $400 book that you see in the bookstore, and go, all right, my college career is over because I can barely get. I was able to get into college and pay tuition. Now I can't afford to get the books, right?
Right.
Whatever we can do, that's what our mission is with Alexis George Wines, is to create opportunities for those future leaders. The logo on our bottle speaks to what it is. It's about the next generation. It's about youth. And so AlexisGeorgeWines.com tells a story, tells the wines that we're selling. We will be in retail establishments throughout the country, starting in 2021. We were fortunate to make a shipment to Trader Joe's just 24 hours ago for a national campaign.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Starts with that. And the sky's the limit in regard to where we go from now going forward. So that's where you can find us.
Okay, you all on any other social media?
Instagram, Alexis George Wines. Facebook, Alexis George Wines.
Okay.
And so you can find us in any of those. And then for me personally, it's George Knows Wines.
Okay.
And so, feel free to DM me with any questions as relates to wine. I'm happy to answer those. Keep wine simple. The simplest message I can give to people as relates to wine is know what you enjoy it, and then try something new and expand your horizons.
Okay. So, as we can see, ladies and gentlemen, Kamala Harris is not the only person from HU that's doing great things and trying to make a difference out here in the world.
You know.
So, with that, we're going to sign off. Thank you again, George. Hopefully, folks will have a wonderful Thanksgiving. If you can't get your Alexis George wine before Thanksgiving, you know what? Order some, get it, and you can get yourself ready for Christmas.
Absolutely.
Okay? Or you can buy somebody a bottle for Christmas.
Absolutely.
You might know somebody that likes a Riesling or Pinot Noir or something to that effect. They've got a wide range of stuff, and I can tell you from personal experience, absolutely delicious.
Salute. Appreciate you. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Thanks, bro. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Peace and love.
Peace and love.